Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do button braids. This is for the opening meet, the local club. So they're really, really easy. And you can make them bigger than like a hunter braid, so they really don't take long to do. I usually give it about that much space, especially up at the crest. You want the buttons to be bigger. So when I'm doing this, I actually find that it's easier to have longer nails. I'm missing a nail right there, just ignore that. So I kind of rake through the hair and try to get 3 even pieces, just like that. And then, it's a little bit uneven. Okay, so I just braid down, and I try to make this as neat as possible at the top, like that. That kind of just makes the braid look better at the end of it. So pull, and it's not so much about pulling tight as it is pulling the right way. So when I do a crossover, I make sure I'm pulling it sideways, and that translates to a tighter braid. And doing it this way also saves your hands a little bit. So once I'm about this far down, I add in my yarn. I don't want to add it in too early. If I add it in too early, then it's harder to get the needle through for when I go to tie it up. So, and I try to add the yarn into the pieces that are like the shortest. So this piece in the middle is quite long. The other 2 pieces are a little bit shorter. So the yarn kind of just helps me be able to braid down a little bit further. So I just keep braiding down until I can't anymore. And I try to go down as far as possible. Like right now I'm basically just braiding that one middle piece that was longer and then my 2 pieces of yarn. So once I have both my pieces over to the right side, I pinch off at the bottom, pull it over like this, cross it over, and then just loop through like this. I pull it nice and tight, and then I give a pull on each little strand. Riley, no. And then at the bottom, I do this double, it's a double knot. It's a surgeon's knot. It just helps make sure this is very secure. But again, you probably don't have to do that if you're just leaving it in for a little bit. Okay, so now that it's braided down, I like to get the braids nice and wet. And I also feel like it helps if the yarn is a little bit wet, at least for the needle that I use, because it is quite small. I'll show you what I use. It's just this like plastic little needle thing that I got off of Amazon, but honestly it works so well. Anyway, I grab both the pieces of yarn and pull them each to one side, and then I basically just roll it up. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm just gonna start over. So one on each side, and I start to roll up the yarn and the main. Sorry, it's only 2 a.m., so not fully there yet. I just roll it up as much as possible. The more it's rolled, the better the button looks. So once it's rolled up, I stick my needle up in the bottom of it. And it's not at the bottom, but it's kind of through the braid. And I try to make it that it's going straight through, and also kind of just like how when I braided it down, I had those 2 pieces. I want it to stick through there. So then this is where I know I have a cheap a cheap needle, but I just stick the yarn through. It's always easier to do the first one than it is the second one, but stick each piece of yarn in, and I don't think it really matters which side you put it in. I usually just do kind of like one on each side. So once it's in, I kind of just stick it in and pull it through. And once it's pulled through, I have one piece of yarn on each side. I do a double knot at the bottom. And this is where you can kind of like, there's a little bit of a tail on this side. This is where you can kind of like hide it. And make sure the yarn goes at the bottom, all the way at the bottom. And I can make sure that the yarn is getting that tail in. And pull it tight. And then a double knot at the top. And another double knot at the bottom. And again, I always make sure these braids are in good, especially at the bottom, so I'm all for double or triple knotting. And that's it. Now you have a button. And once the whole mane is done, it looks really good. I'll show you how to do the second one. And same thing, just make sure it's rolled up in there. The more rolls you do, the better. The tighter the roll, the better. Really get it nice and rolled in there. And then I get my needle, stick it through the bottom, and make sure I go through the braid. Sometimes, if you can't get it to go through, that means you're hitting a piece of the yarn. So just wiggle it a little bit until it goes through. And then I have my two pieces of yarn, one on each side. Hey, Riley, come on. And I just made myself a new needle, but I forgot it. So the new one has a little bit of a bigger loop, so it's going to be easier to get the yarn in. But again, this needle has done me good, this plastic one. And it's like $10 off of Amazon. You get a whole pack of them. So even if you break one, you can just get another one. Okay, so one on each side. I like to wiggle it and make sure it's nice and straight. And I keep that button look. Pull it through. Sometimes you need to help it out a little bit and pull the yarn one at a time, at least the way I do it, where I have the one on each side. So double knot at the bottom, and make sure you go at the bottom of the braid all the way. Sometimes you have to wiggle it a little bit. Okay. And then I want to do that, get the tail in there. Pull it nice and tight. Double knot at the bottom, double knot at the top, and then 2 double knots at the bottom. And this is a really secure braid. I braid for the local club all the time, and they were telling me that one time they forgot to take some of the braids out, and they didn't realize until a week later, and the braids are still in. So I think that has a lot to say about how well they're in there. And it really does not take long to do these button braids. I always braid my jumper with these button braids as often as I can because it just makes them look so much better, and it takes no time at all. Like, this horse has a lot of mane, so he takes me a little bit longer, but a horse with the average amount of mane, really does not take long. Like, I can do a full set of button braids and the forelock in 45 minutes, which is really not that much time in the grand scheme of things. But this horse over here, he takes me about an hour and a half just because he has such a long neck and he just has a really thick mane. But his braids always look amazing because of that. So, and he's a really good boy, even though he is shaking his head a little bit this morning, but that's the worst thing he does. So, pulling it through, and double knot at the bottom. Okay, I don't know what that was, but double knot at the bottom, and pulling it nice and tight. It's okay. Double knot at the top, and then 2 double knots at the bottom. and I'll show you. Sorry, I'm just working with a phone in my jacket, so it's not very secure. So I'll show you what they look like. These two that I've just done. There's 3 actually. So, what do you got? Oh.